The surge in COVID-19 cases since the middle of February has perhaps caught the hospital system in India unawares. But the shortage that is being reported at various hospitals in India of oxygen does not have to do with a lack of capacity to produce the gas. Let's first look into how oxygen is produced. Some companies like Inox Air and Linde India produce oxygen for both industrial and medical purposes. They use a process called cryogenic air separation. Here, air is liquefied by freezing it below its critical temperature. Air, as you know, is 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. It is separated using this process, and liquefied oxygen is then filled into tankers that are designated specifically for their transport. Besides companies that are in the business of producing gases, petroleum companies and steel companies are also capable of producing oxygen. Steel companies use industrial oxygen in gaseous form as a raw material to make steel, while petroleum companies generate oxygen as a byproduct from their refining process. Large steel companies have substantial capacity to produce oxygen, but only 5 to 10% of that capacity can be used to produce liquefied oxygen, which is required for medical purposes. Reliance Industries is producing 700 metric tons of oxygen per day at its Jamnagar facility, the largest oil refinery in the world. Indian Oil Corporation and BPCL are together supplying around 250 metric tons of oxygen per day. According to various reports, India has oxygen production capacity of between 7,300 and 7,500 metric tons a day. With the surge in COVID-19 cases, the demand for oxygen a couple of days back reached 6,000 metric tons a day. So, even at the current peak, oxygen production is more than adequate. Problems arise, however, because liquefied oxygen must be transported in specially designated tankers. The distances these tankers need to travel to get oxygen stock to hospitals is large, in some cases close to 2,000 kilometers. The central government has begun airlifting empty tankers to oxygen-producing factories to reduce the time taken. But tankers that are filled can't be airlifted because liquefied oxygen must be maintained at a certain temperature and air pressure. And while the Indian Railways is currently being used to transport tankers, the journey still takes several hours. What's more, some officials have pointed to a lack of coordination for the bottling process. That is, when oxygen from the tankers is used to fill high-pressure cylinders. There is also a dearth of cylinders, with a large number being acquired for private consumption. As a result, smaller hospitals are facing a shortage of cylinders. Both centre and state governments are working hard to ensure that oxygen reaches the people that need it the most as quickly as possible. In the meanwhile, doctors have advised against acquiring oxygen cylinders yourself unless it is prescribed to do so. The hope is that this supply side issue with oxygen gets resolved in the coming few days.